Good morning. It's January 22nd, 2026. It's about 10:27 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I am Yahweh Elohim, Yahuwah, the God of heaven and earth. So we're going to cover a couple things today. One, we'll start off with, I'm not a huge fan of the Board of Peace, namely the invites that have been sent out to the Board of Peace, some accepted, some not. The invites went out to really bad actors who are actively committing war crime. So I'm not quite sure how that works. How are you going to invite the very inmates to the table of the police type of thing? Like, how are you going to invite some of the worst actors on the international stage to a Board of Peace? And again, these countries, Russia namely, are directly opposed to goodness. So how are we going to, PT should have never taken the captain's chair, and nor should he have nominated himself to be a singular entity governing this. Essentially, this is a root of a one world governance. So PT should have read the book of Revelations, because false peace, one world government, the president of peace, and the very deserving mentality, the ambitions to rule the world is essentially what path he's going down. And as the world, right, it's kind of I'm the script writer and I'm the owner of the show, but it's up to the human beings really to see what production you all want. So if humanity is hell-bent on having their Antichrist, well, there you go. Your man is doing all of those beastie things. So the AC is going to do what the AC is going to do. And that's just a fact. You don't need labels to tell you these things. You shouldn't. You should be able to use the biblical tools that you should have. But before that, you should have that sovereign connection with me, your Elohim, because then you will be granted eyes and ears to see and hear. That means that you'll be able to see through the facade of people, places, and things. You'll be able to look at something like, I was in the car the other day and I made this kind of a comparison. As I was saying to Asherah, I said, look at that garbage truck. To give you an idea of the world, how blind the world is to these things, if it smells like a trash truck, it has trash hanging out the back of it. But if somebody slapped a free water sign on the side of that truck, you better believe it, there would be people lining up still. Because to them, the sign says, right? Those people are the ones that say, the sign says. Use your own senses to determine what something is, not the false label. And you see? And just like, this could go through, it could be here for days giving examples, but, it happens in so many different things. People somehow think that the false labels on things is what's true, and then they wait for a label to come out to give them that reassurance. But in the last several hundred years, things again have been mislabeled. I, as the God of the Bible, have been mislabeled, have been mischaracterized, and things that are not prophetic but historic have been used by churches for hundreds of years as prophetic when it's not prophetic. You get what I mean? These events and things are and have been recorded by people, New Testament authors, again, up to 100 to 250 years after the events of Yeshua. Again, to the point I'm making is especially my religions, right? Christianity and Judaism, you guys are all looking for a whippoorwill, right? You're looking for something that doesn't exist because it was crafted by man's hands. You're using things as prophetic when they're historic, not prophetic. And again, where do you get this from? You get it because you emulate your pastor. You emulate your rabbi. Meaning, you are looking up to these people and what they're telling you is gospel. And then what happens is the human being internalizes those things and it alters your perspective. Because most of the time, when I'm looking at hearts and minds, again, I'm not seeing the actual person. So I, as God, build a person, and let's say I put 5 unique traits in that individual. Those are 5 seeds that I, as God, am looking at to see what's going to fruit. But then when let's just say, in a parable form, let's say I planted the garden. I planted 5 carrots in the garden bed. The garden bed's a person. The seeds in the garden bed are the things I, as God, put in there. Every time I'm looking at a garden bed, I'm getting 40, 50, 60, 70 varieties of things. And I'm like, where did all this come from? And then the person's response is, well, it's my garden. It may be your garden, but I am the seed planter. Why are there 40 more seeds next to my 5? I planned on these 5 things growing and fruiting as the individual is going to grow into fruit. Meaning, if you're living through dogma, if you're living through someone else's perspective or someone else's experiences, then they're not your own experiences, meaning you don't even have a voice to make a conclusion. Such as, right, the Christian churches, right? A lot of the patrons are going to the Christian churches and they're trying to essentially hold on to untruths. That's what I mean. Like, they're trying to hold on to untruths because that's what they're told to do. And the Bible teaches you from Genesis all the way to Malachi that truth doesn't care about your feelings. Truth doesn't care about anything. Truth is truth. I planted those 5 seeds. Your expectation was to water and to raise those seeds up to a crop that's going to be worthy of heaven, worthy of a purpose that I, as Elohim, give you. Humans today, 90 percentile, do not care about a purpose given from heaven. They don't even care about their afterlife. They're mainly focused on what the world is focused on, people, places, and things. They're focused on what the opinions of others are, and a lot of times people actually hold on to persona. So people like Taylor Swift would have never been as rich and famous and star-studded as she is if it wasn't for the salivating of people coming to pay to see her, right? And then what do? Right? They emulate her. They buy her products. They speak like her. They use her funny taglines. What I'm saying is humans have monkey brain. This goes full circle back to one of my first teachings over 4 years ago that I did, where humans have the monkey brain. Monkey see, monkey do, right? If they see someone more successful than them, a lot of times they are going to gravitate to that person, right? A new person in a new job, right? They're looking high and low for that person to kind of emulate, follow, and then the thing is, they become a piece of that person. So they give up their own sovereignty in trade of an image. And then they are critiquing themselves to adhere to an image that is of the world. Meanwhile, the 5 initial seeds that I laid down have been neglected. That person is tending 40 other seeds that they planted, and they feel like it's what they want to harvest. Well, this goes back to fallen angel thinking. Because if fallen angels never mated with humanity, if the fallen angels never taught mankind root cutting, if they never taught mankind war, if they never taught mankind beautification, if they never taught humankind such bad behaviors, and why did they do that? They did that because they wanted to be worshipped. That's the fact. So, in a modern era, right, people aren't bringing sacrifices to the Taylor Swift altar, but instead they're bringing their money. They're bringing it into their home. They're bringing it into their radios. Their kids can sing the unholy hymns of so many music stars today. And again, when I go gut check, what are you singing? They don't know. It's like, why don't you know? Well, I just do. Why did you just do it? Well, because I saw somebody I respect do it. So you saw somebody you respected do it, so why do you respect that person? Well, because they make more money, or they look more beautiful, or they have a better husband, or they have a better child, or they have a better car, a better house, a better place, a better state, a better whatever. Thus the human syndrome. Now, when you take that person and go, how close are they being kingdom-minded, one? How close are they to living through biblical code? Biblical code. Right? An agreement of being constantly pruned and trimmed, constantly having to rid yourself of this world. One TV show could have you thinking entirely different. Then you go from that way of thinking to another way of thinking, to another way of thinking, to another way of thinking. And every time you're doing this, as I've said, you're adding layers. Layers of falsehood. Because, again, this carries on through layers and throughout reality. What are people rioting in America for? Because they're being told to? Are they questioning the person, saying, well, you know, if I'm a free-thinking individual, I'm going to actually look at these issues and I'm going to make a self-determination without including the opinions of others, right? That's what I need everyone to do. I need everyone to stop salivating after other humans because it's dangerous. It's a dangerous syndrome for humanity. Humanity can be humanity is extremely superficial, right? If you look at it from how I, as Elohim, look at it, people are virtually your hairless monkeys, and everyone is looking to each other monkey, trying to be like each other. There's no originality. There's no originality. And in the new earth, everyone must be original. As the creator, the whole purpose of being a human being is that you are a mini creator. I don't need to see more replicas. I want to see independent original thought stemming from human souls. That is what brings innovation. That is what brings goodness. That is what brings a high mind, not a hive mind. Albeit humans have the ability to have a hive mind, but that is reserved for something. That is reserved for when the earth is at natural alignment. So truly, if I knock off all the facade and all the superficial things of anything, that's what I mean. This is a part of my process as God. What I do is I begin to knock off all the falsities. I shake it. I'm beating it up, right? I'm knocking all this false armor, false belief, false dogma all over the place. I'm burning it. I'm like, you don't need it. Get rid of this 40 other seeds out of your garden. Rip it up. It's going to hurt. You don't like me. I get it. But if you trust me, that's what I mean. People do not trust Elohim because the fallen angels didn't trust Elohim. You see what I mean? They had the same problem. It started with the talkback. Well, just because you're God doesn't mean that we have to listen to you. Okay, but understand that everything you see in the universe has a balance. Everything you see in natural creation is done through purity, right? You don't see the lizard outside wearing hats and gloves and scarves just because it's cold. No. The lizard is equipped already to know where he or she needs to find shelter during the proper season. Humanity needs to get back to the same type of thing, right? You should be able to identify things that are wicked and evil quickly and correct it. You should not be so thin-skinned that you are offended and then you react like the fallen angels did, right? Because again, what do the fallen angels do? They talk back, they make their case, why they're special and I'm not, why they should listen to themselves and not me, why they have all the reasons in the world to go and do what they're about to do. And that for the likes of them, they could never understand why I have prohibited something or why I have said something. And then it takes 7,000 years for hopefully them to be able to see these things. But then what happens when that fallen angel offspring is thousands of years in the making? They're so far away from me, the chances of them ever getting into the heavenly abode again are virtually zero. Because they don't feel like they need to. They don't feel like they want to. They just don't. And that's a shame, because I, as Elohim, I look at everybody truly that I want to get them on the right course so they have the correct destination. And when the earth is at a true peace, I want you to imagine something. think of this in kind of a like an imagery I'm going to paint you. What if I said that the earth that I created, this entire ecosystem, this little bubble in the cosmos, let's say that in its natural peaceful state, right? It's at a harmonic peace. Harmonic peace, when that happens, the magic returns to the earth. The magic returns to the earth. Things like levitating blocks to build pyramids that otherwise would be impossible. To keep the people not only preoccupied, but to be pushing towards something meaningful. To be working as a team, but still independent in thought and preference, but still always aligning with righteousness and individuality. When there is sin, this entire place has been polluted with sin, and then has been approved, and then it has been exalted, and now it has been built upon, and so the foundations of the earth now are built upon sin. So therefore, every single human entity on this plane is standing on one way or another a platform of deception, a platform of sin, and every time I, as God, go to take the lollipop out of someone's mouth, they kick me, they scratch me, they want to fight with me, they want to tell me how good the lollipop is and how bad what I'm trying to give them is. Right? Think about people that are, they're in the hospital or something, right? And somebody, a nurse is coming in, the patient's fearful. The patient is like, you're going to hurt me, right? Say it's somebody who unfortunately was like a burn victim and they got to change their bandages, right? Well, the nurse comes in and she's trying to undress the bandages. The person's going to yell. They're going to scream. They're going to hate that nurse. But at the end of the day, that person's not going to live unless the nurse gets in there to change the bandage. I, as God, am not going to be moving people forward into the new earth when they're still holding on to earthly and worldly values and baggage, and they have monkey brain. You can't be monkey brain. You can't be monkey see, monkey do. Truly. So, alright. So, in summary, what we see today is in no way, shape, or form what the new earth is going to look like. It has no place for even PT the AC, right? Sloppily going on the world stage, just setting up like peace operations. Like I'm saying, it is all for attention, and it is all for, honestly, his glory. Let him have it. I could frankly care less, because most of the bad actors in the world today are old anyway. So they're going to fall one way or the other, through natural means or through other means. But I'm saying, I have no urgency to egg that on. I'm just simply pointing out the facts that it starts at truth. It starts at truth. Right? How are you ever going to know your true Messiah, Yeshua, if you keep calling him Jesus, which is a Greek-Roman facade? It's a facade. You need to knock the facade off to get to the root. Right? What is the root? The root is understanding who I, as Yahweh, am and how I interact with the creation. That's what I mean. You need to independently go through these things, because if you do, you come out the victor, because you'll be able to use the Bible in whatever version you have it, and you'll be able to read it, and you will be able to see me for who I am. That, again, comes with a bit of a spine-chilling reality that, wow, God not only exists, but he really does come to earth, and everything he says, essentially, like, if it's his will, it's done. And have proven to the world for years that it has absolutely zero impact of who on the facade, right? If I went based on how many views a video has, most of my videos have 0 views. Does that at all stop my will from being done? Not once. Not once. That's what I mean. So, I've proven my godship. I have proven my actual name that has been obscured from the Bible. And that, in a way, has been done on purpose. Because I don't need people coming in the name of falsity, right? False messiahs, false Christ everywhere, right? How many Jesuses have we had in the last 800 years that have done the same thing, right? They walk barefoot, they wear a white robe, they carry a cross, they have a crown of thorns, they think they're teaching the same Book of John crap, and they think they're Jesus. And it's like, you probably are Jesus. You are a fake Christ. You are a fake Antichrist. The name is fake. The entire character that's been built up of this Jesus is fake, right? That's what I'm trying to tell you. Because the real Yeshua that died at Pentecost was the most obedient to the commandments, the most obedient unto me, the Father. And that's what I mean. He openly said, Father, use my vessel. If you literally want to throw me over a cliff, then that is your will. That is the kind of people that I want, right? I don't want people that say, well, Father, I'm going to be sovereign over myself. Okay, then don't expect my promises or my blessings, right? Because you're so far malaligned with me that I'm never going to be able to issue a dispense of a blessing or a promise when someone is remaining obstinate for me. You get what I mean? And that's another problem. Humans then try to rectify these things in your mind, and then when you're coming out with the conclusion, well, I'm right and he's wrong, okay, go ahead and stand on that side with Semyaza. Stand on the side of Azazel. Go stand on the side of Lucifer. Go right ahead, because that's their argument. You see what I mean? Their argument, really, and in its entirety, is that I should not interfere with the creation, and that it should be up to lesser beings to essentially just kind of do whatever the hell everyone wants. Well, that doesn't fare well for just normal human beings that have no divine power. They don't have any spiritual insight. You see what I mean? They become cannon fodder for divine rebels. That's a problem with me, because humanity is not producing good fruit for me, Elohim. So then I have to come to that realization and go, then what am I keeping it going for? Why am I keeping the program Earth going? If people are not wanting to fall into righteousness and goodness and get to know their God, then what's the purpose? That's kind of to my point, right? But again, people would rather argue with me than to understand, listen, and learn from me. And that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy, right? Because remember, imagine if you're on the operating table and you're inches away from death, but your big mouth needs you to argue with the doctor who's trying to save you. And you're like, well, you know what? I don't like it when someone touches that part of my knee. I just don't like it when someone speaks to me this way or that way. And I have a call. I will continue momentarily. And we are back. So that was a spam call. So those are always fun. And again, right, these fraudsters out there, not only are they just politicians, but I mean, there's people out there that are trying to take advantage of people. And it happens every day. So, just while we're in the moment, I will submit that caller and or that organization. I will put them down. I will have reapers that will go out and follow up on that, and we'll make sure that they fall from 20-story buildings. So, moving on. I think I was trying to finish up the parable of, you know, if somebody goes into a doctor's office, right, a lot of times they don't walk out getting a clean bill of health. Usually it's, you know, the doctor's kind of meticulously picking that person apart, but at the same time, it's only as useful as the person takes the directive, right? And in the modern world, most humans respect their doctor more than their God. They respect their bosses more than their God. In fact, most people feel that they themselves are far more adequate than Elohim to be their individual selves, right? You know what I mean? That's what I mean. So humans have no problem going to a doctor and getting told that they're overweight. They eat this, you know, they eat bad. They're, you know, like whatever. And if the person walks away and says, okay, well, that's what my doctor said, that's what I got to work on. The hang-up happens a lot of times that people up to this point really have never even understood the spiritual aspect of existence and how much more important that is than the physical. Because if, when I come down, and I'm down, but I mean, in this earth, it's so polluted, it's a toxin of sin. Everything is tainted with sin, and it's in layers. So when I am ripping off bandages, when I am smashing through facades and I'm hurting feelings, people a lot of times overreact. And it's okay to overreact and then internalize and kind of lament like the doctor. Like, well, screw that doctor, right? I'm going to go eat a honey bun. I mean, that's kind of my guilty pleasure. I like honey buns. That's my midnight snack. But, right? If I, as Elohim, am telling my humans, guys, like, these are the things that are ailing you. This is what's contributing to these problems. And that's what I mean. Like, humans, you guys have a very small latency rate. What that means is, if you've ever observed a tortoise in the zoo, to a human, a tortoise is crazy slow, right? The tortoise, like, moves his head slow to eat the lead. Like, his entire existence is slow. Which is why, as Elohim, I gave the tortoise an extra 100 years, right? Because he's so slow, he couldn't accomplish everything in 100. Let's give him 200 so he can accomplish it. Humans have a very slow latency rate. So, most of the time, humans are able to conjunct 1, 2, and at your highest, about 3 thoughts roughly in the same category. That's about all you're good for. So in a way, you do rely upon others, but you should be relying upon others in a very static way, right? Let's kind of roll through the scene. So let's say kind of a weak-willed person starts a job, and again, they're that person that they're trying to find that emulator. They're trying to find their leader, right? They're trying to find that person that they can monkey see, monkey do. And it's even encouraged, especially in corporations, places of business, places of finance, places of government, politics. And let's look at, well, let me send the same track because I don't want to get too far away. I want to make sure that this is understood. And so that person starts work, right? And then they see their boss start using, let's just say, the person before never used the word like. After just a few days, now that new employee is, using the word like 80% more than they've ever used it before. They don't actually realize what they're doing because they don't have any inside eyeballs, right? They don't have any spiritual eyes. They only have the flesh. And that's what I mean. They're not able to actually put together the trail of breadcrumbs. And then that's day one. Then the next day, right? I'm saying they begin to model the behavior of other people. They begin to take on their habits, good or bad. They begin to even sound like those people. Look at Marco Rubio as a wonderful example of this. Before PT the AC came onto the stage, Marco Rubio's stance on many things were vastly different. His general demeanor was very different. Now that he has been PTAC's toady, right, he has fully adopted not only the mentality, the demeanor, the nuanced sayings. You see how that works? Because he's emulating T-Rex Trump. And that's happening a lot around the world. And that's a problem. That's a problem, because if that person is spending so much time looking for the approval of others instead of looking for the approval of God, then they're never going to be in the kingdom with God. You get how that makes sense? And so that's really, what is the root? The root is truly selfishness. It's selfishness, and most humans are very venomous. Speaking of T-Rex Trump, and again, that does not mean that I'm not going to continue to work with President Trump, because I will. I will continue to work with any person who is an actionable player. You know what I mean? I will continue to work with people that are actionable players. That's another way I can spin this. Not spin it, but try to explain it. So if you ever play video games, let's say you walk into a crowded hall and there's 100 people in the video game, right? Well, we know, people that have played video games, not all 100 people are like interactable. You can't go up and talk to them. There's not a quest to be found. There's not a way to trade. But I'm saying they're what's called non-player characters. And if you look carefully, this is in every video game. When you see NPCs, non-player characters, they actually start to look alike. Because it's actually a repeated archetype. So when you're talking about the Matrix or the world, if you don't fight against kind of the current programming and you don't form your own like individuality, you're going to become a blended version of whatever the Matrix guides you in. That's literally spiritually being guided by the world. That's saying I'm going to side with the world so my path opens up for the world, versus siding with my God and the path to heaven opens up. And very frustrating as Elohim to when I'm checking in churches, if we are talking about the end times, everyone's waiting on prophecy, but it's not prophecy, it's history. It's history. Why would John, as written, say that this is how we know we're in the last hour? These things are going to happen. And guess what? Shortly thereafter, Rome began crucifying all Jews and Christians. Hitler wasn't the first, right? Hitler wasn't the first. What was his name? Nero. Emperor Nero. 666. That is quite literally the passage in the New Testament, and they're not prophetic. In fact, they're historic. And it actually illustrates the struggle between the original Nazarene who followed Yahushua, right, all around Judea, and he is teaching directly from me, Yahweh, and that's what was happening, and he's teaching the same elements that I am teaching today. Why? Because I taught him. You get me? And that's what I mean. And then leaving it up to the world to do what the world does. Well, how's it going to benefit the church? How's it going to benefit Rome? How's it going to benefit our governance? How's it going to benefit our bottom line of money? And then you put people like Emperor Nero, right? Very similar to President Trump, because guys, I'm not a patron in any way. I'm the deity of your religion, but I mean, like, you have dispensationalism that is not correct, that everything is like exact one-to-one going over and over, but we see repeated patterns. This is not prophetic. This is what I mean. So the difference between a prophecy, a prophetic situation, prophecy is when I'm saying, guys, I'm about to lay down one hell of a big snowstorm. It's going to be record breaking. That's prophecy. Why? Because God said it. My word does not return to me void. Hello. Versus, it's common knowledge that if a dog has fleas, they're going to itch. If a dog is never relieved from their flea problem and it gets worse, they will eventually die. They will succumb to the flea infestation. Okay? That is what's happening now. It isn't prophetic that the world has been past the bell curve, has literally gotten less intelligent, less respectful, less individual because of the pursuit, essentially, of singularism, which is bad. That is the equivalent of me saying, you know what? Let's just get rid of the lizards, or let's blend the bird and the lizard. Let's blend the bird, the lizard, and the fish. Now the bird, the lizard, the fish, and the giraffe. Now the bird, the lizard, the fish, the giraffe, the elephant. The bird, the lizard, the fish, the giraffe, the elephant. And we keep going and going and going until we have this monster. The fallen angels are fallen because why? They were supposed to be watching humanity, not screwing it. Something so basic. And what was their argument to me? Well, Father, you don't know that we love them. You don't know that we're going to be the best parents. We're going to be. And I'm sitting here going, you don't understand because I am Elohim. I can see 6,000 years into the future. You cannot. And guess what they did? They gave me the middle finger. And guess what happened? Everything that the Book of Enoch explains, other texts explain, cross-culturals explain, and what was once supposed to be the good, pure human who was obedient to me for the sake of righteousness and goodness is now corrupted. So corrupted that, again, if they have any independent thought or feeling or emotion, it is still usually against me. That's the byproduct. That's the symptom. That is the dog that has fleas. That is me as Elohim going, great. I see dogs and everyone has fleas. And every dog is asking other dogs, like, hey, your fleas don't look so bad. I'm going to come hang out with you. Well, in this perspective, as a human, you should be able to look at that and go, okay, dogs, no, you don't need to do that. You both have fleas. You both need a bath. Hanging out with each other isn't actually going to do anything for your flea. You both need a flea bath. But, right, in the dog's mind, that doesn't make sense. The dog mind, you're like, no, bro, I'm going to go stand over here next to this dog. Okay. So let me know when you're both either dead or you've had a flea bath. Like, all right, moving on. So this was kind of a funny, I brought the T-Rex thing up because I was watching briefly what the Davos thing was, and I heard Gavin Newsom say if, Trump is more like a T-Rex, that if you don't mate with him, he devours you. Well, my note here is if Trump is a T-Rex, then Gavin Newsom, you're a Dilophosaurus. The venom-spitting little headdress guy. And so I guess that makes me Godzilla. So, and in Godzilla's legend, he's invincible, he's fire-breathing, he can essentially limitless strength, form, and ability. And I don't know. I don't think Trump is necessarily a T-Rex. He's got a bit of longer arms. He's got a little bit longer arm span. But I don't know. I guess we could go with that. With the Trump T-Rex thing. That was another one I was thinking of. But my computer's kind of having a not great day today, so I'm not going to risk trying to look up what the name of that dinosaur was. But I was going to say most of the other politicians I see is the little dinosaurs like in Jurassic Park. They're just like little ankle biters. One's not a lot, but man, when you get hundreds or thousands of them, they're pretty rough. You know what I mean? And that's another form of the world. It's another form of the world. And, the weird part about this is, going back to my parable, I was talking about like the magic in the world returning when things are in harmonic synchronicity. Not synchronicity in a bad way, but I'm saying when all units, living creatures, when all units are engaged in their created purpose, the earth responds. It's like a failsafe for me. When all things are moving accordance to my will, the will of heaven, the kingdom, peace is actually a natural symptom. So there's no way that the Antichrist is ever going to usher in true peace through human means. It can't be done. That's what I mean. That's why it's faulty. That's why it is truly just another anti-anointed one trying to step forth into the international stage, just like Caesar, just like Nero, just like the kings and the queens of old, right? This is not a new song. It's not a new dance. It's just a comic book that's been stored in the basement and it's pulled out every couple hundred years. That's it. So as far as your prophecies, there's nothing new under the sun. And that's to my point, right? The biggest clause here is free will. I as Elohim can influence people, places, and things, But that doesn't guarantee that my influence is going to take hold in a person. In fact, it can just result in many arguments. That's a lot of times what happens, right? With churches, with synagogues, with world leaders. It doesn't matter. That's generally the consensus that happens. And why? Because instead of someone being able to look at the Bible and say that's a pathway to God, they don't do that. They feel that somehow that Bible is God. Don't confuse my word, spoken, written, thought of, or suggested. My word is found in the Bible, but it is up to the reader to discern what is actually from me, what is not from me. Start looking at your Bible more as a I don't know the name of them, but you know the workbooks in like school, right? They give you like the workbooks and it's like, read this passage and then, you know, for comprehension, understand this. And then it says, well, deduct the ones that you know are not true. Humans need to do that. Go through the Bible as a workbook and say, we're going to start deducting things that we know. That God that was on the mountain, he gave Moses the tablets. That's the God in which we worship. Because why? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself idols and worship them. Right? You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath by keeping it holy. That's what I mean. If a Christian, let's just say any run-of-the-mill Christian, starts at the Ten Commandments and you hang them up in front of you on your Bible study, and if you're reading something that is going against the commandment, then you know it's not of God. You know it's not of the true God, who is Yahweh Elohim, who is I in the flesh. And I'm not egotistical at all. Again, my job here is just my job. My home is in heaven. I am trying like crazy to secure people so I have company when I go home. So I have people that I can spend eternity with. But at the same time, it's a massive struggle in this time period. And in which case, like, it almost feels like natural order is that humanity needs to stay on Earth. And that really only the elect and the few that do come out of the superficial world, they come out of the matrix, and they can live according to the commandments and according to the actual word, right? They're going to be the ones going upstairs. But I'm not taking people, like, that's what I mean. So you're never going to be in a religion that I'm supporting with untruths. That's where you start. You get what I mean? You got to start with truth. And people, unfortunately, are highly afraid of the truth. You know, that's what I mean. I can literally open the Bible anywhere and really just go over yeah, well that's the Lot story. Let's go here. You know, we're going to be, and again, I just flipped it here, but I'm just trying to give a couple of examples. And in verse 17, Yahweh heard the lad crying, and the angel of Yahweh called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. Yahweh was with the lad, and he grew, and he lived in the wilderness and became an archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him for the land of Egypt. You know, either way. Now therefore, swear to me here by Yahweh that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my offspring, or with my prosperity, or my posterity. But according to the kindness that I have shown to you, you shall show to me and to the land which you have sojourned. And Abraham responded, he swears it. But that's what I mean, right? Because it's so funny, and I heard this on one of those like motivational videos, and it was just interesting. On the motivational videos years ago, it was saying like you can never connect the dots looking forward, but you can always connect them looking backwards. So a part of having spiritual eyes and ears to see is having foresight, right? Having foresight, and then having a mature viewpoint of history, current events, and what's possible, right? Oh, this is a good one. Exodus right here, 13. The God of your fathers has sent me to you. Now they may say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And then God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God furthermore said to Moses, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial name to all generations. And it's no surprise why it makes me mad that my name is literally not in there. Because in the original, like, actual event, it's, what is your name? It is Yahweh. I am the Lord God of creation, of heaven and earth. Before that, your fathers knew me only as El. In modern times, you have supposed scholars teaching that El is supposedly my father. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And look, here's the thing. For all of you big mouths out there, where's the God? Where's the gods? Where are they then? I'll wait. Because if you can find one, then send them my way. I'll be happy to give them a list of shit I need done. So if not, then please save your idiocy elsewhere. Let's see here. And then Moses said, now what if they will not believe me or listen to what I say? For they may say, the Lord has not appeared to you, Moses. And then I said to him, what is that in your hand? He said, a staff. Then he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. Moses fled from it. But the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand and grasp it by its tail. So he stretched out his hand and caught it, and it became a staff in his hand once again, that they may believe that Yahweh is the Lord, he is God, and he is the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. He has indeed appeared to you. And then Yahweh, who is the Lord, furthermore said to him, now put your hand into the bosom. So he put his hand into the bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous like snow. Then he said, put your hand into your bosom again. So he put his hand into his bosom again, and when he took it out from his bosom, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. If they will not believe you or heed the witness of the first sign, they may believe the witness of the last sign. But if they will not believe even these two signs, or heed what you say, then you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground, and the water which you take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. Then Moses said to the Lord, please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in times past, nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And then Yahweh said to him, who has made man's mouth, or who makes him mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then go, and I, even I, will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to say. So, wasn't intentionally going in this direction, but I can work with it because just there's, again, so much work in the earth that needs to be done. So, this is something really interesting, that when you're actually looking at shadow pictures, you have the true God of heaven and earth, who is Yahweh Elohim, who is my spirit. And those are divine signs and wonders that only God can do, acts of God, right? And then you have the New Testament saying to watch out for all of these copycats. Watch out for their false signs and lying wonders. That does not say that there are going to be acts of God performed by humanity, right? You don't need to. Is Taylor Swift doing acts of God? She doesn't need to. Is Donald Trump doing acts of God? He doesn't need to. But what they are doing, they're signing a lot of things. They're pursuing false peace. They are trying to set mankind's kingdom up above my kingdom. And truly, they're just trying to keep my voice in the basement. Because that's what everybody would prefer, is if I was okay with anything, right? I just accept you as you come. And that there's going to be, I'm just going to congratulate you on how wonderful of a human you are. Right? Said no Bible verse ever. That's kind of my point, guys. Like, you know, you're expecting me to lie to you and to tell everyone that they're doing a great job. You weighted up on the false name. Good job. You have no idea how to discern righteousness from goodness because your heads are up your own butts. Or worse, they're up other people's butts. It's disgusting to me. And honestly, it is idolatry. It is being out of the synchronization with heaven, with the kingdom of heaven. And that's what I mean. Because if we go back in the Bible and let's say I went to Moses right now. Say I went to heaven, I brought Moses down and I set his butt right next to me. First off, he'd be asking a lot of questions of what everything was. But let's say we got past that. And I said, Moses. First off, Moses respected and respects me so much that the moment I speak, or even the moment I look like I'm about to speak, he would face my direction and bow his head gently, with his eyes open, but looking at my feet, because he, in his heart of hearts, in his mind of mind, in his flesh of flesh, knew he was not ever worthy for not only the kingdom, but for my presence. And for just the very event of me speaking with him. If I said, Moses, go jump over the cliff, he would respond, yes, my Lord, and he would go over a cliff. And as a good God, I wouldn't do that. But my point is, there are situations that Moses got frustrated because he was trying to work my will and the people wouldn't agree with it. Right? That was the only real reason Moses got his tunic in a twist, was because he's trying to carry out my orders and my word and what I'm telling him, but he's meeting defiance at every odd. Every damn camp he's coming to, they want to bitch, they want to complain, they want to say this and that, and that virtually, like, it's kind of like today. Every church you go into, like, there is this false war happening in the Christian movement that is insane. It's like, I mean, in some ways it's funny, in other ways it's so sad. Because Yeshua, right? The Yeshua who was crucified, if Yeshua walked into most of these Christian churches, he would denounce you and spat on the floor and call you the children of the devil. Because you all act like it. And it comes through. The symptoms come through in your church services. I can tell a mile away when there's a pastor who's, oh, it's the devil. It's the devil. Oh, Jesus wouldn't let us do that. Jesus. And at the end of the day, he's so superficially sick in an artificial world that he's got more fleas than he could ever do with. But guess what? Because the people come and drink his water, it's a false reassurance. That's what I mean, right? It's a false reassurance. In the parable of the person starting the new job, they look up to this person. That person could be a shitty role model. But that person feels that they should still look up to that person and all these things because, they have a higher position than me. So their behavior must be acceptable and liked. And that's what I want to be when I grow up. You should be kingdom-minded. You should want to grow up in the morals and the values that are biblical. Obedience to Elohim ensures not only your eternal life, but it ensures your protection through this life. Disobedience to Elohim means you may have success in the world. You may gain fandom. You may gain fanfare. You may gain riches. You may gain most of what your sick, twisted hearts desire. And which is why a lot of people are going to end up in hell or the abyss, and very few are going to end up in real heaven. And my song ran out, so I guess I'll find another one. This computer, so particular. Alright. So we're almost at the hour. I'm going to take a 5, and then I will gather my thoughts and then regroup for the next section, but I think we are about done. Alright, so a couple of last-minute housekeepings, In some ways, I do kind of feel bad about the stalling when it comes to the Iran situation, but actually I'm not sorry. Because here's my qualm with it, right? My qualm with it... That's a damn helicopter. My qualm with it is the Trump worship, right? As I've said, I'm trying my hardest to keep the Antichrist out of the pit. Truly, I'm trying to keep him out of the pit. It's hard enough to keep him on a leash and at least working through my path. And it doesn't help when the world is constantly petting his ego. I'll be honest, it may be just one of these things that have to come to happen. Like I'm saying, they I hate to say it, but predetermined destiny, I guess, because I don't need Iran giving PT this false sense that he is a god or he is somehow like the world ruler. Because to be honest, if that occurs, then that's gonna put me in a predicament that I then have to sort him accordingly. I don't want to do that. I don't want to send anyone to hell personally. I don't want to do that. But at the end of the day, if people are constantly walking in the literal footnotes of the worst parts of the Bible, willingly or unwillingly, knowingly or unknowingly, you get what I mean? That's kind of putting me at a hard spot. That'd be like me as the employer going, dude, you're showing up for work late every single day. I have went to bat for you. I have gotten you your record cleaned up so many times, and every time I turn my back, you're late to work. You see what I mean? As the employer, at some point, I have to have that conversation that I got to terminate you. Thus, to all my churches, to all the people of the world, I care more about this creation than anyone could or would ever care about it, number one. Number two, I am probably the only being in existence that has heart palpitations over human idolatry. I get cold sweats at night over the human idolatry. Okay? I have to close my ears off when people are using my true name, and it is a pain in my ass. I would almost rather you not use my true name and go back to never knowing it, because thus then I hear you. But that's a double-edged sword, because thus then when I hear you, that means I get to see all of you. Anywhere in the world. And there's people using my name that are not righteous. You are not holy. You are not walking in commandment. That is an issue with me. And I am struggling. My will versus humanity's will. Like, this isn't a drive-through window where you get to order what parts of scripture you like, and then you get to keep that, and then you're not served the rest. Like, if you want the kingdom of heaven, that is obedience to the commandments and understanding who your Elohim is and how creation operates and listening to the teachings in which I teach. And if you do not understand them, work on it. If your six-figure job depended on it, would it be important enough to do it? A lot of humans need that factual reality check, because so many of you go above and beyond for other humans, for tokens, for falsity, for fucking paper money that other than it being the currency that allows you to make a purchase, that is not that important. It's important to the modern age, but I mean, people sacrifice their values, their individuality. They sacrifice so many things to make those people happy. And it's a reoccurring loop. You know, and at the end of the day, I don't sit here and say that I am who I am because I'm, like, in a way I wish I wasn't who I was, because it's like, I really wish humanity understood how difficult you all are to deal with. How difficult you all are to deal with. And I truly do. I lament more than I even want to about just wishing that none of it ever happened. Wishing that Earth never existed. Chiefly humans never existed. Because I don't see any goodness that is brought to this world. I see death, destruction, ignorance, all over the place, stupidity, dirtying my creation, killing each other, hurting each other, lying to each other, slandering each other, arguing with each other. And it's all because ye are little gods. You all say you want sovereignty, yet you go and snip up the asses of other humans that are just as unrighteous as you. And thus we have a never-ending tale of crap. So, alright, it's an hour and 2. I guess we will call it. And, trying to think, ending on a good note. What is the good note that we can end on today? I'm struggling to find it. So, have a good rest of your day.